We're going to get a little more in detail about the latest developments in the aid delivery, quote unquote, to Gaza. So the U.S.-backed Gaza aid group, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, launches Reservation system after Trump calls for innovation in war zone deliveries. That's right. Now, you'll remember back when the GHF commandeered aid operations, there was a lot of concern about surveillance and biometrics and tracking, about how this aid was really going to be weaponized. A lot of us didn't know it would be this violent in terms of just direct deaths in and around these aid sites from gunfire. But what many groups anticipated, a number of human rights groups anticipated, was that this aid operation was going to be a front for data gathering on Palestinians. And here we are. So the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, a U.S.-backed aid group that has delivered more than 2 million boxes containing nearly 125 million meals to Gaza, is unveiling a pilot program enabling families to reserve aid parcels in advance. See, this is being pitched as a positive, obviously, because of the outlet there, Fox News. The foundation said that as more aid flows into Gaza, families will now be about to use the program to secure their parcels in advance, bringing more ease, dignity, and order to the collection process. Under the current setup at distribution sites, the GHF noted that younger, more fit men often outpace women, children, older men, and people with disabilities to access aid, which is collected on a first-come, first-served basis. So the GHF tweets out, "We are proud to launch a new system enabling Gazan families to reserve and guarantee aid parcels in advance. This is real progress. It both demonstrates that GHF's model is working and reflects our commitment to adapting to the needs of those we serve and delivering on POTUS's call for innovation." Well, no, it proves that what you're doing is not working. If you're having to update it, first of all, that's an admission that it's not working. The way aid is distributed is to as many people in as much abundance as possible. So the fact that now people are going to have to reserve online aid in advance, to think that this is going to be implemented is just absolutely insane. So here's Ariel
in a
Osteron.
moonscape, as we just saw.
Yeah, exactly. We will get to all of this, but this is just an unbelievably insane plan. So here's Ariel Osteron, who is a journalist for, I believe, I-24, one of the Israeli outlets. The GHF announced it launched this week a new system to enable families to reserve aid boxes in advance using photo IDs and secure online accounts. The system is designed to provide safe, predictable access to GHF's food aid parcels, the GHF said. The new voluntary program, which will scale over the coming weeks, began on Sunday at Rafah's Saudi neighborhood distribution site and included 350 participants. The GHF said it hopes to expand the pilot to other GHF sites in the coming weeks. Under the current setup at GHF's distribution sites, that was the statement from the GHF. We don't have to read that again. So he goes into some bullet points about how the new system will work. A trained local worker invites beneficiaries to participate. Those who opt to participate will have their photo taken and receive an ID card with their photo and a unique number. Beneficiaries have the option to create a profile online where they can input information such as household size. A box of aid will be set aside on specific days for each participant, eliminating the need to partake in the rush. Aid will continue to be available on a first-come, first-served basis to those who choose not to participate. All data is securely stored and never shared. Yeah, no, I'm sure. Never shared. No, of course not. Of course not. By the way, the GHF won't even share who funds them. They say they have backing from the United States and then a number of Western European governments. They won't say who they are. That's a great sign for an aid organization to be really secretive about who funds them. Most people who fund aid organizations do it to be seen doing it. It because they want the social capital that comes with being a philanthropist. But no, not the GHF. So DropSite breaks this news as well. And they also, link to their tweet a video, which I think we should play a little bit of now. So what you're looking at there is obvious. You're looking at desperate, starving Palestinians rushing an aid site and an aid truck. Now you have to ask yourself, just common sense, are people so desperate to do that going to respect the parcels of aid set aside for number A531 based on their online ID? Like, do you really think you're going to be able to implement this with any degree of orderliness without more violence? That's the thing. Like, I suspect this is going to create more violence, because what happens when people rush the parcels that are reserved online as if it's like a fucking Amazon pickup? As if it's like an Amazon Dropbox. I mean, it just seems like a completely insane plan to me, at best, because as Dropsite points out here, rights groups have previously warned that GHF's model entrenches surveillance and control over the population. The sites remain militarized death traps under Israeli guard, where dozens of unarmed Palestinians seeking food are murdered every day by trigger-happy Israeli soldiers. And yes, we saw from the very announcement of this GHF, we saw group after group come out and warn. Here, Skyline warns biometrics for food, a dangerous shift from humanitarian relief to coercive surveillance. Biometricupdate.com says Israel seeks funding for plan to require facial recognition in exchange for food in Gaza. This is an article written for World Peace Foundation by Alex DeWall, who was one of Greenwald's recent guests, sort of an expert on famine and starvation. Surveillance humanitarianism in Gaza. Techpolicy.press. I actually want to get the person who wrote this on, Sarah Fatala, because this is a great article. We could do a whole piece on this when we have time, and hopefully we can get an interview.
It's a good subject.
Artificial intelligence and the orchestration of Palestinian life and death. So in this, the author goes into great detail about all kinds of ways in which tech has been weaponized against Gaza these past 22 months. That remains, of course, an ongoing concern. Cheryl Benson replies to the Dropsite post, "This is Israel carding everybody, and under the circumstances, this could be illegal. This whole outfit is illegal internationally." Andromeda 11711 says, "This needs to be stopped. This is overreaching and overlording to steal biometric data. These actions are criminal and a serious human rights abuse." Anna Karen says, "So they turn starving people into a customer loyalty program now. Cool. Totally normal behavior from the free world." And Ursula Byrne writes, "The people in World War II Holocaust had numbers too, conveniently forgotten by Israel. It's a genocide no matter how you spin it. It can't be denied. Unforgivable and unforgettable." Isn't it crazy that just a few months after we saw all these concerns being raised about this being used as a tool of surveillance? So at first you have chaos breakout at these aid sites. You have the IDF open fire on people while they are lining up for these food distribution sites. And now the solution to that, because we can't have that if it's chaotic, even though they insisted it's working so well, but now we're going to add a layer of innovation onto this. So now what we're going to do is we're going to create an online pre-ordering system where you get your picture taken, you get an ID number, and then, we'll have the parcels for you. You can come and pick them up. It just gets more and more dystopian every day. And talk about a solution in search of a problem. What's obvious to anyone who knows anything about humanitarian aid, like the experts at the UN, like the 170 different organizations who said that the GHF should be disbanded, is that the way to distribute aid is wholesale, volume. Get it to people. The more, the better. These claims that Hamas is stealing the aid have been debunked by USAID, by the IDF itself. And so you talk about a solution in search of a problem. There is no need for any of this. You can let the UN do its job. You know what you could also do? You can lift the blockade on Gaza so that they can have a state, so that they can have a civilization, so that you don't need aid to go in. Like the whole dynamic, the whole arrangement. Well, how do we get food into this war zone? Well, if there's no blockade, then there's no issue. There's no issue. If these people weren't kept in prison, you'd have no violence to begin with. You'd have none of this if you just didn't have a terrorist apartheid state imprisoning a population through no fault of their own. If you didn't have the Israelis putting their thumb on a scale in an election in 2006, empowering the most militant among them so that you can do this, so that you can have a violent incident, I'll say, here in East Berlin that serves as a new Pearl Harbor for you to go ahead and do this. This is all of Israel's creation. It's amazing. And now they're going to come up with innovations to make things better, to make things easier when the solution is in plain sight. No matter how many layers you want to dig here, the UN is able to distribute this aid very effectively when they're allowed to, and when they're not fired upon from the sky, by the way, because we know a lot of aid workers have been killed. So it's just amazing how you can create a situation like this, create a horror show like this, and then roll out these piecemeal solutions, which are only going to make the situation worse. Everything they've done to make things better, they've made worse, including the establishment of this GHF in the first place. And now this modified version where you're going to have an Amazon Dropbox dynamic for people to come and pick up aid. It is really chilling. It really gets more and more dystopian by the day, I think.
Well, it's the Marcus Aurelian thing, Marcus Aurelius thing. You know a thing by what it does. The intention was never to feed these people. The intention was always to kill them.
Yep.
The reason that Israel demonized UNRWA the way that they did was because they did not want this population to thrive. They wanted this population to die. And what people survive to be so sick and so weak that they constitute no threat to the greater Israel project. And to the extent that they keep any of them alive, it's for international opinion. If
Yep.
they had their choice, they would just kill all of them, in my opinion. Now, Americans who look at things like this and are indifferent to them, or who cheer on ICE officers kicking the shit out of people in the middle of the street without identifying where they're from, who they are, without any warrants. We've had U.S. veterans get caught up in that. You really need to familiarize yourself, if you're not already, with a concept called Imperial boomerang. The basic premise is what they do there is a tryout for what they're going to do to you.
Right.
So a lot of what you see ICE doing, and it's many of the people who have been trained by the IDF, are doing what they have been doing to Palestinians over there to Americans over here. Now, when you think about the end game of all of this, where they're giving out these IDs, this is one of the things people were so worried about, particularly in the Trump coalition. These invasions of privacy and everyone getting the mark of the beast in some form and being tracked. Okay, so who's giving all this money to Palantir to create these massive databases and to go into all of the government records and to integrate that into one database on the American public? They're doing that right now. What they're doing with the GHF over there, it's a great way to try out. Well, let's see if you give everybody an ID in exchange for food, because the AI is coming for your job, right? They're going to have to distribute food to all these people who don't have any work, and some of them they'll just let them die. But you try this out over there, and then over here you've already had Palantir create this database. And then you start issuing cards so you could track everybody to get their aid package. Think about it this way. What if Louis XIV had this kind of technology? What would he have done with the peasants? You understand? Because these people have no more affection for the peasants than the French aristocracy did. And the difference is this aristocracy has access to technology that makes them orders of magnitude more powerful than the French aristocracy ever was. And they have the benefit of hindsight. They know what happens when you make people desperate enough. They are doing an end run around popular revolt and building the police state before the real need for it arises. That is why you need to care about this. What they're doing to them is a test run on what they're going to do to you.
Yeah, yeah, and that has been a point that, like you said, ironically, has come more from right of center circles than left of center circles in recent years. But whether it's Snow White tanking at the box office or the GHF innovations, there seems to be a blind spot among many on the right for this kind of thing. Oh,
Yes,
because
there is.
there is the assumption, and look, this is why I say at its core, yes, at its core, what this boils down to at the end of the day is just simple rank racism. Because the only way you can be okay with this is if you think, well, they're only doing it to those people and those people
Yep.
don't matter. And
Yep.
they wouldn't do it to me because I'm not one of those
Right.
people.
Yep.
Right. So at the end of the day, it just comes down to a view that certain people are less than human. And so we don't have to worry about what you do to them because they won't do to us what they do to them. Right.
Right.
And this is why racism is a very effective tool. They did the same thing to the poor whites in the antebellum South. They had their boot on their neck, but what did they do? They were able to point to the slaves and say, well, you're above them. You're above them. So don't worry. You're good.
Well,
Right?
yeah. Whenever you speak about ICE abuses, you get a bunch of people, and you can always tell when people have been programmed when they all say the same exact thing, like Maryland man, Maryland man, Maryland man, Maryland man. You know, they've been
Right.
programmed to have that knee-jerk reaction. Say 20 million illegal immigrants, 20 million illegal immigrants. If that's why your life sucked, why did wages start to decouple from productivity in the 70s, a time when we had historically low levels of immigrants in the United States?
Right.
That was one of the lowest levels. Usually it had been between 30 and 40%. It was something like 13% in the 70s, and wages just completely crashed for the working class. So if that's the reason your life sucks, why did it start when we had historically low immigration? They want you looking at the immigrants so you don't come for them. They got to get their database in place. They got to get their ID cards out. They got to get their surveillance cameras in place, and then they got you. Then they got you. Then they're not going to talk about immigrants anymore, because at that point you won't be able to do anything. But
Right.
right now they need to keep you distracted while they get the police state infrastructure in place.
Please clap.